that there is no evidence that we're involved in Madeleine's disappearance.
I think you've heard a lot about Mr. Amaral's thesis that Madeleine is dead, and I hope you've also heard that there is absolutely no evidence to support that thesis. A thesis without evidence is meaningless. There's absolutely no evidence that Madeleine is dead.
But then you hear
let me finish, please. There's absolutely no evidence that Madeleine is dead, and there's absolutely no evidence that we were involved in her disappearance. There's no evidence to support that thesis. There was no evidence to support our involvement in Madeleine's disappearance.
There's no evidence to suggest that she's come to any harm. There's good reason to think that she is out there alive, based on statistics from the States and from what we know.
Os cães que foram chamados a auxiliar a investigação são grandes investigadores. Eddie é um cão especializado em detectar vítimas mortais e assinalar locais onde estiveram pessoas mortas. Por sua vez, Kella consegue detectar sangue humano em proporções tão pequenas que escapam aos investigadores. Só reagiram no apartamento em que estiveram os McCann. Eddie assinalou o odor a cadáver no armário do quarto dos McCann.
De facto, esse sim foi o cão que marca o odor a cadáver humano, marcou a este canto o odor a cadáver. Estavam as portas abertas quando foi feito o exame e depois de ter percorrido aqui o quarto, é o quarto dos pais, levantou aqui o focinho e ladrou aqui nesta zona. Portanto, segundo o perito, aqui esteve um cadáver, ou na prateleira ou no chão.
Eddie também detectou cheiro a morto por detrás do sofá da sala do apartamento. Chamada Kella, consegue apontar uma pequena quantidade de sangue por detrás desse mesmo sofá.
No momento em que foi lavado, ou tiveram a lavar atrás do sofá da sala, tenha o corpo ser transportado para este local. Ou então que aqui tenha estado a ser guardado durante algum tempo. É essa a indicação que existe, portanto não existia sangue, ao contrário do que existia, foi encontrado por trás do sofá. E é essa marcação que aqui esteve um cadáver.
What I would ask people to look at is what is being said officially, that we are not suspects, that there is no evidence that we're involved in Madeleine's disappearance.
I think you've heard a lot about Mr. Amaral's thesis that Madeleine is dead, and I hope you've also heard that there is absolutely no evidence to support that thesis. A thesis without evidence is meaningless. And that is what we are challenging. We strongly believe, and in fact, as a direct result of the searches, which were actually directed at finding a missing body, in and around Praia de Luz and the surrounding terrain, the fact that this thesis, which has been tried to be proved quite firmly, has not found any harm to Madeleine, is actually in many ways reassuring and gives us more evidence that Madeleine is probably alive.
Yesterday was what the prosecutor said. There's absolutely no evidence that Madeleine is dead.
But then you hear
let me finish, please. There's absolutely no evidence that Madeleine is dead, and there's absolutely no evidence that we were involved in her disappearance. Well, that is the conclusion. Let me finish. That is the conclusion of the process, and that's what we're here debating. The conclusions of the process versus the conclusions of the book. They are not the same.
With the conviction of the inspector.
Why would we be shocked? We're not denying the existence. Why would we be shocked? We're not denying the existence of the dogs or anything else. It's evidence we're interested in. There is no evidence that Madeleine is dead. We have to go, thank you.
It was investigated, the evidence was presented to the judiciary, and the judiciary concluded there was no evidence to support that thesis. That's very
no DNA, but how do you explain the coincidence between the
DNA is only one aspect of it. There was no evidence to support our involvement in Madeleine's disappearance. That's the key thing. Madeleine is still missing. We are here as her family to continue the search. Now, I can't speak for the people who've read the book, but obviously it doesn't stand up to critical appraisal.
This is the first time that you give us a big interview, not being arguidos since then. So now I feel free to ask you this directly. How can you explain the coincidence of the scent of the cadaver felt by British and not Portuguese dogs?
Sandra, maybe you should be asking the judiciary because they've examined all this.
But don't you have an explanation
we're
for
obviously
that?
Madeleine's mum and dad, and we're desperate for people to help us find Madeleine, which is why we're here today. The majority of people are inherently good, and I believe the majority of people in Portugal are inherently good people, and we're asking them if they'll help us spread this message to that person or people.
So you don't have any explanation for that?
Ask the dogs, Sandra.
Ask the dogs, no, Jerry. Now I think that I feel free to ask you. Don't you feel free to answer me?
I can tell you that we've obviously looked at evidence about cadaver dogs, and they're incredibly unreliable.
Unreliable?
Cadaver dogs, yes. That's what the evidence shows if they're tested scientifically.
There is no evidence that we're involved in Madeleine's disappearance.